Chakshunmilitam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Namah Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shanyavani Pasyatya Deshatarine Jayase Krishna Caitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare
Padaya Krishnasaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Guruvani Pracharane Nivasesha Sanyavani Prashkati Karane Om Agyanataminandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksu Samilitanjena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Caitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Sayam Rupakadamayam Dadadvisa Pandantikam Mansakalpa Trubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhaivacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaisnavebhyo Namo Namah. Good morning. Last week we were almost completing our Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami's explanation or his repeating of what Caitanya Mahaprabhu, the pastime he spoke about the installation of the Gopal deity in Vrindavan. And we had read a verse but hadn't read the purport. Oh, I know I forgot something. We read a verse, but hadn't read the purport. Because I found this purport, in one sense it's so simple, but in another sense it's just so interesting. And I'll read the verse, we'll read the Bengali word by word, very simple, and then we'll read the verse, and then we'll read Prabhupada's purport. And I want to ask you what you think about this, what Prabhupada says in this purport. But first the verse. Eka eka brajavasi eka eka gavidila. So eka eka means each and every Brijvasi gave, eka eka dila, he gave one cow. So every Brijvasi gave a cow. And then sahasra sahasra gabi, so thousands and thousands of cows, gopalera hoila, became the property of Gopal. Now what would you do with all those cows in your living room? So here's Srila Prabhupada's translation. Each and every family residing in the each and maybe if we just turn it in a different direction, the speaker part.
You think about it. What's the problem with that, Mark?
Okay.
What verse is this?
This is text 102 in Madhya Lila chapter 4. Should we try again? Okay. Each and every family residing in the land of Brajabhumi contributed one cow. In this way, thousands of cows became the property of Gopal. Now, listen to Prabhupada's purport. This is the way to install the deity, construct the temple, and increase the property of the temple. Everyone should be enthusiastic to contribute to the construction of the temple for the deity. And everyone should contribute food for the distribution of prasadam. You can remember this for your next fundraising campaign. Prabhupada said that each and every family, you'll end up with so many cows again. But seriously, this is the way to install the deity, construct the temple, and increase the property of the temple. Everyone should be enthusiastic to contribute to the construction of the temple for the deity. And everyone should also contribute food for the distribution of prasadam. The devotees should preach the gospel of devotional service, and thus engage people in practical service to the deity. Wealthy people can also be attracted to take part in these activities. In this way, everyone will become spiritually inclined, and the entire society will be converted to Krishna consciousness. The desire to satisfy the material senses will automatically diminish, and the senses will become so purified that they will be able to engage in bhakti, in devotional service to the Lord. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchite. By serving the Lord, one's senses are gradually purified. The engagement of one's purified senses in the service of Lord Rishikesh is called bhakti. When the dormant propensity for bhakti is awakened, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He is. Bhaktyamam abhijananti yavanyachasmi tatvata. Bhagavad Gita 1855. This is the process of giving humanity the chance to awaken Krishna consciousness. Thus people can perfect their lives in all respects. Now tell me something, just raise your hand and tell me something that you remember from this purport. Yes?
We can understand Krishna only through bhakti. Otherwise it's difficult to understand.
Yes, do you remember the verse that was quoted, 1855? Now, abhijananti, that one cannot know Krishna. Bhaktimam abhijananti, one cannot know Krishna without devotion, without love, without affection for Krishna. Why is that?
That is what Krishna wants.
Yes, okay, good answer. Why is that? Yes?
It is our constitutional nature.
Yes. How about from the sort of psychological point of view? Why does Krishna only reveal Himself to His devotees?
Because you trust them.
Yeah? How many people do you think really know you? Oh, the only person I'll ask that question to is Braj Mohan. How many people? Only GV. She knows that you're her servant. How many people really know you on the deepest level? And how many people could you just tell exactly who you are to? And the answer, of course, is very few, if any. And what's the reason? Is because and it's not either all or nothing. It's not either I tell them every single thing or I don't tell them anything. There's so many different layers and degrees of relationship we have with people. So if we have someone, if we work in the office, if we may tell them something about ourselves, but we don't tell them as much about ourselves as we do to a friend. And according to the level of the friendship, we tell more or more or more. And the thing that causes us to trust someone sufficiently or completely is if we know, well, let me put it the opposite way. Why wouldn't we tell someone or just anyone the deepest, darkest secrets in our hearts? Why wouldn't we?
Fear to be judged.
Yeah, fear to be judged and taken advantage of because they have that information on us and they know who we really are like and they could use it against us. So what would cause someone for you to trust that that person would never, ever, ever use that information against you?
To be convinced that the persons have my best interest.
Yes, and who has your best interest in mind is people who love you. So love and trust, which is what Prabhupada actually said he wanted the ISKCON society to be run on, which is a very, very, it sounds so simple, but it's such a high standard. That means, what does it mean, practically speaking? That the people that you're dealing with all have your best interest in mind. And that means that they have your best interest in mind, which means there's no envy, there's no jealousy, they're interested in you becoming what you have the capacity to become, the ultimate capacity to become. They're helping you advance, and I could even say, they're even happier at your advancement. Yeah, they're happy at your advancement. How does that sound? If your friends and associates were all, that was their concern for you, and not in a foolish way, whatever you want, we hope that Krishna will give you, but in a way that takes as the greatest common understanding is that we're meant to love Krishna and advance in our devoted service to Krishna, devotional service, our bhakti. Can we even imagine such a society? And that was what Prabhupada requested us to have. What a elevated, exalted goal that is, and how to progress on that goal. Who will be the first? In other words, I'll say it's not perfectly here right now. Well, what do we do about it? Well, we could wait for everyone else to act on that level, or perhaps we can take a step forward on that level ourselves. It's really being in the mood of a servant of who? Servant of Krishna and servant of everyone. Because to see someone, anyone, any living entity is separate from Krishna is illusion. It's just not reality, because Krishna is the absolute truth, the all-inclusive absolute truth. Anyone remember anything else from the purport? Yeah. Everyone should contribute food for the distribution of prasadam. Contribute, give. The temple is meant for what? Taking on behalf of Krishna, and then distributing on behalf of Krishna. Yes?
How like everyone should come...
Oh, just one second. That just... that's such a high standard that someone gives to the temple with the faith, with the full confidence that it's not going to be pilfered, that it's all going to go to Krishna. Then people will be so inclined to give. So that's such a responsibility on the part of the holy residents of a temple. And their mood in being in there is implied to be, I'm just a servant of Krishna, an intermediary to help you, to assist you in your service of Krishna. And that's my interest for your advancement. It goes back to that same thing. I exist for others. What a concept, how exalted that is, how elevated it is, how appealing it is. Because everyone is stuck in the deep mud of selfishness. And the more selfish we become, as one old devotee who's long ago passed away, old Bengali devotee in Vrindavan, used to say, I'm the worst kind of fish, a selfish. But everyone is a selfish, and it's just so unsatisfied being a selfish. Everyone is longing for something bigger than themselves, whether it be the family or the community or the nation or some cause or another cause. But everyone is longing for something bigger than themselves because it's so unsatisfying to be selfish, to be just concerned with myself in a very limited or expanded way. What's an example of a limited way of being selfish is that I only care about this looking out for numero uno. There was once a book called that, Looking Out for Number One, me. And extended selfishness is looking out for my extended group, either family or caste or community or nation, tribe, etc. But that won't satisfy the person because it cuts the person off from his true identity and relationship with Krishna. Yes, Prajwan.
How like everyone should come together and give something to the temple, so everyone contributes.
Yes.
Why do we feel like Bhaktivinoda Thakur is going to everyone asking for 1 rupee to build the temple? So then everyone has done something, everyone is part of helping the temple.
Everyone should do something. Yes.
That bhakti, Krishna purifies the senses of those that do bhakti.
Yes. What does that mean? Because I thought about that. What does it mean to purify the senses? What does that mean? That my eyes, what does it mean to have purified eyes?
To want to see Krishna and nothing.
How does it, okay, so that means, yes, go ahead.
And nothing that is a distraction or an impediment or a deviate or something that takes.
But the problem with that definition and that understanding I found was that the eyes are unconscious.
As in they have a mind of their own.
Sometimes my eyes do have a mind of their own, it's a fact. But then my eyes have their own mind, and my nose has its own mind, and my mouth has its own mind, and my tongue has its own mind, and each of my ears have its own mind. So how many minds do I have? It seems like a lot some of the time, doesn't it? And they're all competing sometimes. But a simple understanding is what? That purified senses means, because the mind is considered one of the senses, the king of all the senses, from the Vedic perspective. The mind is one of the senses, the 6 senses which include the mind, or the 11 senses which include the mind. So purified senses means purified mind. And then each of the senses, instead of having its own idea of what it should do, which is based on the mode of passion, when the mind is passionate, and when then the eyes are going in one direction and the ears want gratification in another way, and the fragrance and taste. But instead of that, if the mind is free from passion and ignorance, and even ultimately goodness, and it is only attracted to the form, as Sunny said, the form and qualities of Krishna, then if the mind is like that, then the senses will also be like that. And that is purified senses. Beginning with, or depending on the purified mind, because the mind's business is to accept and reject, so sankalpa, vikalpa. So okay, bring it up to the philosophical point. If people give to Krishna, engage in bhakti, engage, and the devotees should preach
The gospel.
the gospel. of devotional service. What does that mean? It means preach that this is all that will make us happy, is if we serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. This is what we are longing for. This is what we're looking for. Even to cut off all relationships, because relationships are so painful, and be alone because of the painful nature of relationships, still that won't satisfy the self. Rather, I may have mentioned this, that in New Vrindavan in 1969, I was asked to give class, and Prabhupada was upstairs, and I didn't know he was listening to the class. But somehow the class was about Sukadev Goswami, the first canto of the Bhagavatam, and Sukadev Goswami was an impersonalist first and then became a personalist. So I was saying that, and then one of the devotees asked the question, maybe that was, so I was saying that means that Bhagwan realization is higher than impersonal realization. And then one devotee asked the question, well, maybe that was Sukadev Goswami's personal preference. Maybe that doesn't necessarily mean that it's higher. It may have been his personal choice. So you can imagine how the devotees all like rah, jumped on him, and I mean not physically but verbally, and they chastised him and said how could something impersonal be a personal preference, and it says and there's also the four Kumaras and like that. So that after the class, I went up the winding metal stairs and saw Prabhupada. And he said, so they put the question to you? And I said, yes, Prabhupada. So then I understood he had been listening to the class. And then one other devotee there were a few devotees up there also. It was like entering a completely different realm. It was just like a farmhouse, the attic of a farmhouse, or the top part of a farmhouse, but with Prabhupada in there. It really felt like entering into the spiritual world. So anyway, another one, Mataji named Arundhati, she asked Prabhupada, is it when you go to Brahman, if one goes to Brahman, is it that you can fall down, or you always fall down? And Prabhupada said, always. And then she asked, why? And Prabhupada thought a while. And then he said, because you get lonely. He answered in a simple way, but a deep way, because it's the soul's nature to interact with Krishna ultimately, and because he's not qualified to interact with Krishna, then he comes down and then Prabhupada started speaking, but he comes down to perform welfare activities. And he was giving the example of all the Mayavadi sannyasis who say that this world is mithya, it's false, it doesn't have any real existence, and then they open up hospitals. So say if you're dreaming, and in your dream you get sick, you become ill in your dream, and then someone wants to be kind to you, so they open up a real hospital, not in the land of dreams, but in reality, to help you in your dream. So if you say that the material world is illusion, then why build a real hospital to cure the illusion? Now, what's the kind thing to do if someone's dreaming that they're sick or being eaten by a tiger? Praj Mohan, did you ever dream that you were eaten by a tiger? No? Only you have, right?
Lions.
Oh, it's lions, excuse me. Sorry, I forgot. Lions?
Yeah.
Yeah?
When I was a kid, I was dreaming about a pond and there's a lion there.
Did he eat you?
I can't remember.
Of course. How could you remember if he ate you? I remember one time I had a dream that I was I was one of those, I don't know if you've ever seen them in India, there's these sadhus who they don't wear very much in the way of clothes, but they carry an axe, a metal axe in their hand. Did you ever see those, Prashman? So I was walking down the road, it's like a sadhu, sort of like having a nice beard. And there was a lion on a rock over there, and I didn't see him, but he saw me. So when I went past the rock, he jumped on me, and I had the axe in my right hand. And he jumped on that hand, so I couldn't defend myself, and he ate me. And when I was dying, I was thinking, next time I'm going to carry an axe in each hand, both hands. And then yes, back to Caitanya Caritamrta. So, devotees should preach the gospel of devotional service and thus engage people in practical service to the deity. So the deity is to be the center of the community, the deity. And in Prabhupada's own words, when speaking about New Vrindavan, he said, everyone should rally around the deity. The deity should be the center. Deity is basically the, it's also in Spanish, but in Latin word, how do you say, what does deity mean in the Latin part?
Dios.
Dios, yes. So what does Dios mean?
God.
Yeah, so deity, we say the deity, but the actual meaning is the God. It means God. So everyone should rally around the deity form. Then, wealthy people can also be attracted to take part in these activities of giving. And then, for the pleasure of the deity, for the pleasure of God. So everyone is to be in that mood, Prabhupada is saying. Let's do this for the pleasure of the Lord. In this way, everyone will become spiritually inclined, and thus, and the entire society will be converted to Krishna consciousness. What do you think?
Over a period of time.
It may take a little bit of time, like a couple of thousand or million years, but I thought, but this is the concept. And Prabhupada, as I was reading it, he was so enthusiastic about this, and he made it sound so simple. It's so natural. In this way, everyone will become spiritually inclined, and the entire society will be converted to Krishna consciousness. And the desire to satisfy the material senses will automatically diminish. And the senses will become so purified that they will be able to be engaged in bhakti, devotional service to the Lord. So there's many things we could say, but this is just what you were pointing to. If without a purified mind, without purified senses, it's so difficult to engage in Krishna consciousness, because as soon as I sit down to chant, my mind starts wandering off to, it depends what happened recently or whatever, but it wanders like anything. And the eyes start wandering, and in the middle of chanting, pick up our phones or something like that. So this is because of the terrorists of the mode of passion and ignorance have taken over the mind, and they're performing terrible activities, and therefore they're called terrorists. But if the senses beginning with the mind, becomes so purified, then one will actually take to devotional service. That means that one's service, one's activities will be filled with bhakti. And one will be an actual devotee. And then, being an actual devotee, being able to actually associate with the holy name and with the deity and with the Bhagavatam, as we interact with these Sarup Siddha Bhakti items, then we will experience Krishna there. Because if the mind is a terrorist and the senses each have their own minds, then when we're chanting, we're only going to be associating with our minds. And we won't truly be associating with Krishna. Of course, some effect will be there, but we won't be associating with Krishna. And then it'll appear that devotional service doesn't have the potency that we had hoped it to have, but actually it's not the fault of devotional service or Krishna, it's the fault of my mind being not purified. But a purified mind, a devotional mind, experiences Krishna. So Krishna is so kind that even in our less than purified mind, sometimes we get some taste, and then that taste is our great wealth. Some experience, and that experience is our great wealth. It's our treasure, it's our jewel. Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakta Uchate. By serving the Lord, one's senses are gradually purified. The engagement of one's purified senses in the service of Lord Rishikesh is called bhakti. So once one's senses are purified, when one's mind is purified, and one is interacting with Krishna, not with one's unpurified mind, but one's interacting with Krishna, that is called bhakti. When the dormant propensity for bhakti is awakened, and then when that happens, what's next? One can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He is. So what does that mean, as He is? What does that sentence mean? One could understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He is.
Original form?
Excuse me?
Original form?
Yes, but I want some more.
Greatness and sweetness.
But you don't raise your hand. Everyone else raises their hand. There's always one naughty boy in the class, always. Maybe you have to, how many corners do we have in this room? So many corners. If you raise your hand right now, I'll call on you. Yes?
You can understand His greatness and sweetness.
Not only understand, but will experience Krishna instead of
experiencing bitter sugarcane juice.
What do you mean by that metaphor?
Because the process, when you are purified, in the process you are becoming purified, the practice is the same.
But what do you experience? And if you're not experiencing, when the dormant propensity for bhakti is awakened, so if we're not yet on the actual platform of bhakti, and we're devotees, what are we experiencing? Is my question clear enough, or is it confusing enough? Yes, Mataji.
Joy?
Yes, Mataji. But that's not the direction I was pushing it in this particular point. Yes. Sure.
We are experiencing only the emotions of the mind, not of the...
Yes. That's what I was thinking.
When they are not, you're referring to when the senses are not
yet purified.
The shadow of bhakti?
Yeah, the shadow, the abhas at best. Because there's three stages. There's the upper earth stage of chanting, the namabhas, and then Shuddhanam. So until the senses are actually experiencing Krishna, what are we experiencing? Even as we are devotees, we experience We're experiencing our own minds. And depending upon the quality of our mind, that would be the quality of our experience. So in some way we could say that our experience in Krishna consciousness is a way, it's like putting our fingers on the pulse of our own consciousness. So the doctor is right there by our own experience. When the dormant propensity for bhakti is awakened, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead as He is. We can actually, when our consciousness is awake, when our senses are awake to its natural position, then we can understand Krishna as He is. Bhakti mam abhijananti yavanyas jasmi tatvata, Bhagavad Gita 1855. So that means that when we have bhakti, then when we approach Krishna with purified senses, with a purified mind, with purified consciousness, just wanting to serve Him, with devotion, being attracted to Him, then Krishna reciprocates with that and reveals Himself, because there is genuine love on the part of the devotee. And then Krishna trusts us enough to reciprocate, and depending upon how deep our love for Him is, He reciprocates. But yet it begins, the process begins. It may take, for some fortunate souls, who are very advanced in this life, generally it means in previous lives they've taken it up, or they've gotten some very, very, very special mercy in this life. But sometimes it takes its time. And then Prabhupada ends with two sentences. This is the process of giving humanity the chance to awaken Krishna consciousness. Thus people can perfect their lives in all respects. So he's explaining what? That this process of having a temple, having deities, allowing people to participate in having a service, this is the process of awakening people's Krishna consciousness. And and then people can perfect their lives. Because otherwise, what's life's purpose? Well, I guess people have their. What does a materialistic person think life's purpose is? There's a question. Of course, none of you know any materialistic people, so you wouldn't know. But what does a materialistic person think life's purpose is? Yeah. Enjoy. And they're usually not thinking even that life's purpose is to enjoy my purpose, but that's how they act. Without thinking, right? Because you'd have to be thinking, what is life's purpose? And then they'd say, what is life's purpose? I guess it's to enjoy. But usually people don't think, what is life's purpose? Do you know how many people that you know other than devotees think in terms of life's purpose? Those of you who interact in the world, that life has a purpose, how many people you know who aren't devotees who ask that question? What is life's purpose? You interact with the world. Yeah, one. Who?
James.
Good old James. How did he come to that conclusion? I mean, at least to that question.
He hasn't concluded.
But he asked the question, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty good. How many people? No.
No, nobody asked that question.
So they don't because the real religion of people is what nowadays?
It's more enjoyment.
Yeah, and to enjoy more, what do you need?
Money.
Yes, so that's, everyone is worshipping on the altar of economics. Are you counseling nowadays? How many people that you meet ask that question about what is life's purpose?
Not many. When I ask them that question, then they're a bit shocked, and then they think I haven't thought about that. So often, when it's too much, I try to bring that forward. But other counselors, when you ask the question, and sometimes we chat about things, and then they say their purpose is to help people. But I don't say much, but I say help them to what? To enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
Enjoy life.
So that's one step above, is to help but it's still in deep ignorance, isn't it? Prajmohan, of all the people that you meet in the world.
I don't think anyone.
Yeah,
I wouldn't know.
because you don't ask them. Next time you go shopping, you could ask the cashier, what do you think life's purpose is?
The librarian.
The librarian. Which library? Have you applied to Guinness Book of Records yet for how many library cards? You may be number one. But then again, you may not be. And you could be. Just imagine how depressing it would be if there was no purpose to life, that you just, the atheistic, scientistic, materialistic conclusion that we are alone and orphans, unprotected orphans in a very large and harsh universe. So, and they all say that, well, you get some solace, some satisfaction thinking other than that, but that's reality. So maybe you're deluding yourself. So how would we answer that? How would you answer that? Understand my question? That atheists say that the reality is by definition, there's no God, and here we are alone. Our life has no meaning. It has no purpose. The universe is huge, vast, and we're just on some small planet, and there's no purpose to life, and there's no meaning to anything. And we say, no, life has a purpose. We have to love Krishna. And they say, well, that's just you may feel better about that, but that doesn't change the reality of the situation, that we're just alone in the universe. Now, how would we respond to someone how would you respond to someone who says that? Did you ever meet anyone like that? Yeah? What did you say to him?
So
it depends whether you were working for him or he was working for you.
it was in office, my office. I spoke to one of the fellow employee about this, and she stopped talking to me now. So she doesn't talk to me. So she gave her a couple of books, and I think she got scared and she didn't want to talk about this.
Boy, how do you answer that question to yourself?
Depends on degree of faith.
Well, but how do you answer that question to yourself? Do you understand my question? Maybe very pure people don't even have to ask that question. It's so obvious to them. But how do you answer that question to yourself? Because if you go to the university and take a degree in physics or even then they'll really try and convince you. Or even more dangerous than that, you enter the department of religion of some university. It's everyone is an atheist. It's very peculiar. Well, how do you personally answer that question? I know that you've thought about these things and you've preached on these things, and so Iksaku Prabhu has.
I think ultimate reality is your own experience. There is nothing like a reality outside. Your experience is your reality. And hence by practicing religion...
There's no reality out there?
In the sense, ultimately, at the individual level, it is your own experience. So if you practice, spirituality, and you're able to experience a happy life, a peaceful life, then that is the proof. That alone is a proof. There's nothing more than that.
I think reasonable answer. But you can't say that nothing exists other than yourself. There's a particular... Because when people tell us that the outside world is illusion, what do? We tell them to just try to run into that wall and see what happens.
It's more of a question, but you were saying that we're not actually relating with Krishna when our senses aren't purified, and it's more that we're relating with our mind.
I mean, to some, of course, yayatamam prapadante, proportionately. Yeah. It's not that we're not, but proportionately Krishna descends into the holy name. I was reading that recently, very shocking. It says that Srila Prabhupada was quoting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and saying if you chant the holy names for materialistic reasons, then you're just chanting the alphabet, names of the material alphabet. So it's not either black or white. It's shades of grey, tamam papadyante, and that's described in Madhurya Kadambini. So all the different, when Rupa Goswami, Adho Shraddha, all those, the different stages of bhakti. Did I answer your question in that, or missed it?
Yeah, to some extent, but I was just thinking in the very beginning stages, if you are really just almost engaging with your mind and not so much Krishna, and you're telling other people that just try it, and you're telling them to just try something, but your experience is not actually Krishna. Although, like you said, it's to some extent, but in the beginning stages.
But even in the beginning stages, to some extent, you're experiencing Krishna, to some extent. But this is the special mercy of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu in the age of Kali, and it's called Harinam Sankirtan, because the congregational chanting of Krishna's names is so powerful that if anyone enters the bubble, so to speak, of the Sankirtan, it's so elevating to the consciousness. One can taste something from a different realm. And not only that, you could have people of all different levels chanting and experiencing different amounts of Krishna, and you could say. But everyone will experience something, practically speaking. So that's a special gift of Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu, this emphasis on the holy names, especially the congregational chanting of the holy names. It's powerful. Because it's like when Mahaprabhu himself was engaging in Sankirtan, his experience of ecstasy, full ecstasy in associating on the level of Krishna's Leela, caused everyone else it affected everyone else's experience. So I didn't mean to say that we're only experiencing our own mind, because Krishna is very kind. But we don't fully experience Krishna. In Madhurya Kadambini I may have mentioned this before, that Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur describes how when exalted devotee finally has sakshat darshan, the direct experience of Krishna, and he faints and falls to the ground, and he having experienced Krishna. So he says that previously I compared your complexion to a monsoon cloud, and your dhoti to a bolt of lightning, but now I see how hollow, empty those comparisons were. Because what can we conceive of the transcendental realm really with material concepts and material consciousness? Follow what I mean? Because it's different. It's Krishna's complexion is different from a monsoon cloud or his dhoti from a bolt of lightning. It's something on the spiritual level. But those kind of meditative metaphors, Krishna very kindly appreciates and reciprocates with the sincerity of the attempt. So if someone enters the Sankirtan of the Holy Name or somehow hears it, there's so much purification and experience. Sometimes, I remember probably the last time I went on a Harinam when there were like 100 people, 100 devotees all chanting. It was in Melbourne quite a few years ago. And it so much affected the people. When you go with 3 or 4 people or 5 people, it's quite different, because their energy is more powerful than your energy. But when you go with like 100 people, and the people have never seen anything like this, people, they're in the middle of their shopping or whatever their mind is forcing them to do, and suddenly this energy of the holy names has come, 100 people chanting and drums and some different tastes, and certain people become angry, certain people move out of the way, and certain people can't help themselves and they join in. Have you ever seen that? Depending upon who they are, they have a completely different experience of it. So certain people who are ripe for it, they can't help themselves. They join in the kirtan and dance and sing. And then with it, I remember, I'm specifically thinking of, there's this one group of young ladies and young men or something like that, and one girl, she just joined in. She just jumped in, left her friends and jumped in and started dancing and singing. And then of course, after a few minutes, she got very embarrassed, that she would. But it's a real gift, the holy names, and we should, how to get people to participate and hear powerful kirtans is really good preaching. You can see like when Madhava Prabhu comes or something, and we go to some yoga studio in Fremantle or something, and 150 people come and are dancing, and their mood is a little bit different because they like it because it frees them from their mind. It's not exactly to please Krishna, but they're experiencing something. They're experiencing something that's so far beyond their mundane experiences. It's touching the spiritual realm by Krishna's mercy. So I didn't mean to say that just experiencing their own minds. Krishna's descending into their mind, but which is dominant? Like if one person is doing a kirtan in Northbridge on a Friday night, something like that. The dominant energy is going to be one thing, and if there's 1,000 devotees doing that, the dominant energy is going to be something different. Does that answer you? Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Did you want to say anything, Caitanya?
No, just listen to hear.
what you were saying about Krishna entering into the mind. He does touch the mind. I was reading somewhere, I think it was Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur said, you can't escape that the only way to approach Krishna is through symbols and connection with this world.
Yes.
This is like an alphabet which will allow you to actually access Krishna himself. So to see the world in the proper way is so essential. That's education. And I saw Prabhupada said recently, he said, if you just study one flower, you become Krishna conscious.
Yes.
Because he was pointing out the beauty of a particular flower and how there was an unlimited amount of them. They're all over the world. Who created them? The petals are so delicate. The inside of the flower was so fragile. Who made these? And he said the filaments were as thin as pieces of cotton. Who made them?
So this is another way to deal with the atheistic people. You say this is point out the ridiculousness, the ridiculousness and the statistically impossible, practically speaking, concept that this could be all produced by chance and randomness. Statistically impossible, practically speaking. Yes, Iksakopo.
You mentioned that, from the purport, Prabhupada refers to the Gita where Krishna says that
Bhakti Mama Visanti.
We can experience Krishna as he is. And what came to mind at that when you asked the question was that Krishna is a true friend. You were describing how trust, love, etc. However, our experiences of everything, and including friendship, is still conditioned by our material, conceptions and experiences. So, when you mentioned Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that he saw Krishna as he is, so then we have, I guess it's impossible to even conceive that because it's totally, or we have a level of perception of that to some extent.
And Krishna's also, to make it even more interesting, that he's unlimitedly that. So you could forever be increasing in your realization of Krishna's sweetness. And his sweetness will be forever increasing. There's to no end.
We have no experience of anything that doesn't have a beginning and an end. There's nothing.
What to speak of even the concept of unlimitedly beautiful. What does that mean? That means so you see him and he's unlimitedly beautiful. But if that was who he was, that would be limited. But he's increasingly within the concept of unlimited means there's no limit. So his beauty is increasing continuously. So this is described in the most wonderful way by Kaviraj Goswami in 4th chapter of Adi Lila. This is Braja. Because what gives Krishna pleasure is the happiness of the residents of Vrindavan, and what gives the residents of Vrindavan pleasure is the happiness of Krishna. So their pleasure is just continuously, eternally increasing. So that is such a concept of God. It breaks apart these very limited concepts of God, meaning Ishwara. Okay, yes, Krishna Lila, and then we'll end.
I was wondering, it's kind of related to the topic of bhakti. Maybe a little bit on the side. I was at Govinda's last week and I saw there was a new picture on the wall. One devotee painted a lovely picture of Nrsimhadev and donated it to the restaurant. They hung it up on the wall. And I mentioned to Yadu, I said, involved with Govinda's volunteering there. So this is a sign of things to come. We have to have a machine gun painting on the wall. And he sort of responded and looked at me and said, well, we just have to water the root of the tree. This is all that we have to do. This is all that we have to worry about. You know, let other people water the leaves. And I kind of thought, yeah, that's very nice. It's kind of soothing to understand. And I mentioned that comment to Dr. Brian there, and he said, yeah, it's very easy to say that, but we might have to be in an environment, a conducive environment, to be able to just water the root of the tree. So how do we balance those two aspects in that analogy? And help
Carefully.
with the bhakti.
Carefully. Feed people, but feed them prasadam. But you know, this it's not a question that I can answer. But just one more question about the picture of Lord Nrsingadev. Was he wearing a garland of intestines in the restaurant? Just curiously.
Very bloody, very.
Good luck. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Sri Caitanya Caritamrta ki jai. Sri Caitanya Mahaprabhu ki jai. Srila Prabhupada Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hare Krishna.